Welcome to Newswave with Spawn Wave. I actually don't know how he starts out his videos. I tend to not watch those. I'll watch some of his other stuff, like his taking apart something, but I'm not going to watch Newswave. But today we have two topics that I want to cover on the channel today. Some a little bit spicy, but hey, it is what it is. First time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I would sincerely appreciate it. But first off, we're going to talk about PlayStation, because PlayStation had a quarterly investors report last night, and some pretty interesting things were said, and it kind of piggybacks onto yesterday's video, which I'm sure the comments of that video were very nuanced, very intellectual, and very well received by other people that were viewing the comments. But of course, we're talking about the almighty tariff situation, which is something that is constantly changing. Now, when it comes to me, I don't claim to be an economic expert. I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I am someone who is just posing different questions based on information that is given to us by these companies. By my logic, if you change things because of high tariffs, over 130% was the situation that was first initially unveiled with the U.S. to China, then in my mind, if that goes away or that changes, you would then decrease the price of stuff, because that just makes sense to me. That was the reason that you increased those prices, was because you had to, because of those tariffs. But if those tariffs change and go substantially down, then it shouldn't be an issue anymore. But, maybe it's more nuanced than that. Well, Sony addressed this in their latest investors briefing and said, this is coming to us from Push Square, as part of its financial forecast for the upcoming fiscal year, Sony says it expects roughly 100 billion yen, 680 million in tariffs to compensate. Sony CFO Lin Tao said the company is considering passing on the impact of these tariffs, or the impact those tariffs will have on its bottom line to the consumer. There's also consideration across the firm's entire line of products and isn't limited to just the PlayStation 5. Elsewhere, Sony CEO Hiroki Totoki said moving the manufacturing of PS5 consoles to the US is a possibility. He said that the system can be produced locally and it would be an efficient strategy to get around the brunt of tariffs. So there's a lot of things I want to talk about here. So because you're going to lose 680 million yen, allegedly, and I'm curious as to what that number is based on. If that number is based on the initial higher number, that, once again, we're not going to get political with this sort of stuff, but this does kind of delve into politics. I don't think many people expected that high number of 130 whatever percent, or whatever it was, to actually be the sticking point of this. That was kind of the worst case scenario situations. And now that number isn't nearly anywhere near that sort of thing, why are we still, focusing in on this? And I do understand that tariffs are an ever-changing thing, because that's what I've been saying all along. And the fact of the matter is that, yes, there is the chance that it could once again skyrocket to some astronomical thing. But I think the fact that negotiations are already being done and we're already seeing much, much lower situations with this whole sort of thing, shouldn't that be what we're now basing things on? Shouldn't that be what we're now navigating through this? Because every company, that's my problem. That is my problem with this whole situation. You love tariffs, you hate tariffs, whatever. You love Trump, you hate Trump, whatever. My problem is that Nintendo and Microsoft, and now by extension Sony, were so reactive to the higher price or the higher tariff market point, to where they were like, quick, we have to change the prices of all these things. We have to increase the prices. But do you think that they're going to do the same thing when the tariffs are lower? No. Of course not, because yes, some of it does have to do with that, but some of that is also that beautiful blanket that you can rest your head on of tariffs and world economic conditions, because this is something that always happens in every facet of the world. Every nation has negotiations with different sorts of tariffs from different sorts of companies, and I just find it so strange how reactive and how quick these companies were to react to the fact that these tariffs were immediately spiked for a very temporary period of time, that all of a sudden, now that these huge spikes aren't necessarily there anymore, you're not hearing any of the other side of the coin. So PlayStation 5 prices, PlayStation 5 Pro prices, PlayStation 5 games, this is all across Sony, accessories and whatnot. If you thought that they were immune to these price points going up, you are sadly mistaken. You are sadly mistaken. And then it brings about the really big question. What percentage of this is actually tariff-based? And what percentage of this is actually greed and revenue and keeping investors happy based? Because investors are the biggest and worst problem with these video game companies, because it's not about substantiating your own success. It's about substantiating other people's success who put money into your business. The video game industry has gotten too big, too commercialized, too Hollywoodized, and I've been saying this for years and nobody listens to me. But now you're starting to see the fruits of the labor from this, and these fruits are rotten. These fruits stink. These fruits have maggots and fleas and worms in them. But anyways, maybe I'm completely wrong on this, and I might be. I'm just a dude looking at the situation. Let me know what you think of this in the comment section down below. Try to be nice to other people who have differentiating viewpoints than you. I know that's hard to do on the internet, but you can try for me. And the second thing I want to talk about is this is more of a bit of a rant sort of situation. But I think Nintendo completely dropped the ball with the Nintendo Switch 2 related things for their pre-orders on their website. I signed up to get, right when it went up, I signed up to be invited to the system where I got to pre-order a bundle with Mario Kart World and the Nintendo Switch 2. And then, of course, these pre-orders started to go out to people, and people that were not invited to it were somehow able to pre-order something on there. And some people were able to pre-order it, but everyone that I've talked to, for the most part, I do know one or two individuals who were able to get into that system. Nobody has been able to get into that system. I checked this morning just to be, clear and frank and make sure that I'm not missing something here. And when I go to that, I still get invite required. I was pretty early into this system. I was pretty early into wanting to pre-order this, yet I'm not able to pre-order it. And then yesterday, we had another situation with the Nintendo GameCube controller for the Nintendo Switch 2. Obviously, an item that a lot of people were going to be looking forward to. Now, to be fair, it does seem like this was a bit of a better process than what we are dealing with on the system side of things. There was a bit of a larger window of opportunity for people to be able to order one of these, but I still did see a lot of horror stories where people's accounts were, for some reason, not eligible to get the GameCube controller, or it said that they had already accessed the GameCube controller because somehow, some way, it was only one per person, one per account that you could get these sorts of things to be able to pre-order the GameCube controller at $65. But the bigger problem that I had with this situation, and I think a lot of people are going to have with this situation, was the timing of this pre-order fiasco. You have to understand that Nintendo probably has some sort of idea of how many people are going to want this controller based on pre-order information for the system itself. Yet, they put this up in the middle of the day. Now, that's very strange to me that they would put this up in the middle of the day, because you have to imagine that most people who have nostalgia for the GameCube controller, who either grew up playing GameCube or played GameCube as a child, have jobs. They have lives. They have things to do. You couldn't do 24 hours. You could not do a 24-hour pre-order window for this. And of course, they're already up on eBay for double and 2.5 times the price because people managed to still get their hands on multiple ones of these. I don't know how they did it with Nintendo's special system, but Jesus Christ, there has to be a better way to be able to do things like this. And I think the biggest problem is, look at how long it took for something like the N64 controller to come back into stock on Nintendo's website. That was not something that happened in a very timely manner. I remember at Too Many Games of 2024 last year, Josie had to buy the N64 controller off of someone that was selling it. Now, thankfully, they gave her a pretty decent deal, and there was a very kind individual there who pretty much said, this dude was awesome, man. He came up to me, he was like, I watch all the videos. but I use ad block and I never donate. So here's a C note. And I was like, bro, that is so cool. He also gave me a C note to give to Josie. So she ended up getting the controller for that price point. And, you know, that individual was very gracious enough to pretty much buy that for her. But it's like, why would you not just manufacture a lot of these? Like what's the problem with having some left in stock? What's the problem with having some left over just in case they don't sell out? I don't think this system is very good in order to be able to get this. And now you're going to have to wait. And it's not like the GameCube games are coming at a later point in time. They're available on day one. It's just a very frustrating system. And it's really just, it's not even necessarily, well, it is kind of Nintendo's fault because they control how many pre-orders can be up there. But I think they could have done better with the timing. They could have had a 24-hour window. It could have been something where you pre-order it and then it's an open pre-order for those 24 hours so they know how many they have to manufacture and how many you have to make. And then it becomes a situation where you don't have as many scalpers and scumbags trying to get, you know, higher price points for these items when in actuality you are in control on how the consumer is getting these. This was the only way to get this controller, and you still mucked it up. You still just completely messed it up. And I've been very bitchy this video, but that's fine. Because I find all these things to be annoying. These are all very annoying to me. And realistically speaking, I have a PlayStation 5. You know, I don't really want the GameCube controller. I will buy a third-party GameCube controller down the road if I really want to, or I'll just use the controller, use the Switch 2 Pro controller to play GameCube games, because I know people love the GameCube controller. I think it's all right, but like I'm not going to go out of my way to buy one of these. But it's just very strange to me, these decisions, and it just, God, annoying. And if it annoys me, I feel like it actually annoys people that are being impacted by this, I should say, like a hell of a lot more. Go New York Knicks. Finish the job against the Celtics tonight. The Knicks, I said this a couple of days ago, like a week ago. The Knicks, here's how I envision it. Knicks in Indiana, Eastern Conference Finals. Knicks win. Minnesota wins the West. And then you have Minnesota and the Knicks, the two teams who made the biggest trade with Cat to New York and DiVincenzo and Randall to Minnesota. And then that's the way you see who truly won the trade. Feed families. That would feed families for years. Anyways, guys, give me your thoughts on all of this sort of stuff in the comments section down below. Prices are going up, people. Screw this industry. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.